So picture this. You're a high school freshman in April of 2017. The Nintendo Switch and Breath of the Wild have been out for a little more than a month. You've just finished 100% completing the original Mega Man X trilogy for the first time, and you're craving more news about the yet-to-be-released Sonic Mania, the first true follow-up to those classic Genesis-era Sonic games. I said true follow-up. Anyways, now that Flying Battery Zone, your favorite level from Sonic 3 and Knuckles, has been revealed to be returning for Mania, you've hit your limit. You just can't wait any longer for this game to release, and you need something, anything, to fill that hedgehog-shaped hole in your heart until then. Thankfully, you've recently been given your mom's old laptop to use for school, and because of that, you've been diving into the wide world of Sonic fan games for the very first time. This is the exact situation I found myself in way back then, when I was still trying to figure myself out in a lot of different ways. I'm Kit the Goddess, and if you haven't been around here before, welcome! I'm an aspiring game dev, and if it wasn't obvious, I like platformers, especially of the speedy variety, quite a bit. And thankfully for little 15-year-old me, she was about to play her very first full-blown Sonic fan game. Having apparently begun development all the way back in 2005, it would be another 12 years before Sonic Time Twisted was eventually released to the public, in 2017. Developed primarily by one Bryce Stock of Overbound Game Studios, the game aims to bring together the core gameplay concepts of both Sonic 3 and Sonic CD into a single, satisfying title. Did they succeed? Well, you'll see. But before I get into it, I should probably mention that although I have some nostalgia for the game, I haven't really played the whole thing since that first time back in 2017. I've come back to it and played the first couple of zones occasionally, but I haven't really given the game a fair shake in a while. So I'm going full-on critical lens here, nostalgia be damned. If I want to learn how to make games, I'll need to be able to critique even the ones I love. So without further ado, let's get into it. Sonic Time Twisted plays much like you'd expect a classic Sonic game to play. You pick from your choice of the usual 3 playable characters, Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles, and the game throws you into its first stage, Attraction Attack Zone. Starting off with the pinball stage. Not something I've seen often in Sonic games, and definitely not a change I'm opposed to. Sonic uses a fusion of his Sonic 3 and Sonic CD movesets, featuring both the Insta-Shield and the Super Peel-Out, though the Insta-Shield is a bit buggy when it comes to its collision. Tails can still fly around freely, and Knuckles, as always, can glide and climb walls, with the addition of flailing his fists around while he runs and destroying any enemies in his path. It's a bit weird getting used to Sonic without his drop dash again, but considering this game came out before Mania, I didn't expect it to have it. And with the press of a button, every character can curl into a ball in mid-air, for example if they jump off of a spring or fall, which is a lot more useful than you might think at first. It's a bit weird that you can't have Tails follow Sonic around a la Sonic 2, but it's not a deal breaker. Anyways, Attraction Attack Zone is our first taste of Sonic Time Twisted's level design, and through it we can see that it strikes a really good balance between the sprawling, chaotic landscapes of Sonic CD and the speedy exploration of 3 and Knuckles. This game's level design is easily its best trait, letting you catapult off at high speeds, while also rewarding you for exploring with 1-ups, elemental shields, and occasionally a big ring leading to a special stage. We'll get to the game's special stages in a bit, but before that, let's talk about the shields. Of course, there's the returning fire, lightning, and water shields, giving you a mid-air charge, double jump, and bounce attack respectively, but there's also 3 brand new shields, the stone, air, and ice shields. The stone shield makes you immune to damage from spikes and lets you throw stones as a long-range attack. The ice shield shoots out icicles and freezes enemies, and the air shield, my personal favorite, allows you to fly in any direction for a few seconds. I have a few minor complaints with these, like the air shield not giving you the ability to breathe underwater even though it logically should, but those don't change the fact that these new shields are a fantastic addition to the game. I especially like that the shield abilities still work if you're invincible or in your super form. I've yet to find another Sonic game that actually lets you do this. Anyway, as we make our way through Attraction Attack Zone and clear Act 1, we find ourselves greeted with one of the game's few cutscenes, and this actually changes based on whether you're in the past or future when you finish the stage. But the story is relatively simple, all things considered. After the events of Sonic 3 and Knuckles, Dr. Eggman/Robotnik is presumed dead, and when Little Planet reappears, Metal Sonic isn't too pleased to discover this. So the mechanical doppelganger sets out in search of ancient alien technology capable of resurrecting its creator, encountering our trio of heroes along the way, and sending various surviving badniks to slow their pursuit. After a brief battle with Metal, we're able to continue on to Act 2, which is the first place we'll encounter a familiar looking signpost. At least, the first place on the most obvious path. You can time travel in Act 1, but the time travel post is a little bit out of the way and hard to find. Just like in Sonic CD, these are our means of time traveling to different eras, though rather than having a past, present, bad future, and good future, Time Twisted only features a past and a future, streamlining things quite a bit. Time travel also functions a little bit differently than it did in CD. There, you had to pass a signpost and maintain a high speed for a few seconds or risk missing your chance to time travel. Something that was very difficult to do in many stages, unless you're playing the Sonic Origins port where you can just drop dash back and forth to cheese it. But in this game, all you have to do is pass by the post while going fast, and thanks to the spin dash and the super peel out, this makes it incredibly easy to time travel. It does mean that if you don't know a signpost is coming up, you might time travel accidentally as you speed through the stage, but given that the signposts are fairly plentiful, and also reset every time you travel to a different era, this shouldn't be too big of an issue unless you're super averse to backtracking to the nearest post. The layout of each act significantly changes based on the era you're in, with some stage gimmicks even being exclusive to certain acts, like these weird little ball pits in Attraction Attack. Other than the music and the aesthetics, nothing else really changes based on what era you're in. You'll still fight the same bosses and play the stages in the same order, with each zone leading straight into the next one and keeping you in your current era. There is one key component to time traveling that you'll definitely want to make use of though, and that's the special stage gates. In this game, special stages once again take the form of 3D environments, this time borrowing elements from Sonic CD and Knuckles Chaotix' special stages. Taking place on flat raceways populated by rings, spikes, enemies, and power-ups you can take back to the main stages with you, your goal is to race Metal Sonic to the end of these courses. Fall off the stage or fall too far behind and you lose. Beat Metal to the end and you'll be rewarded with either a Chaos Emerald or a Time Stone. Chaos Emeralds are for special stages you enter in the future, and Time Stones from the past. This is even denoted by the color of the big ring you go through. Thankfully, if you fail the special stage, you're able to retry by spending one of your lives, which, if you're skilled at the game, are extremely plentiful. In order to get the true ending, you're required to collect all of the Time Stones and Chaos Emeralds, so completing at least one special stage per act is essential if you want to keep a good pace. And thankfully, the game encourages you to explore for the big rings through the fact that they're often hidden near where a time travel post spits you out. So if you choose to time travel, there's a pretty good chance there's a big ring somewhere around you, and if you explore for just a little bit, you'll probably get a chance at one of the magic gemstones. Overall, the special stages themselves are challenging but fun, even if the depth perception is a little difficult to get used to since it uses 2D sprites in a 3D environment. Just get used to these special stages, because if you want to get the true ending, you're going to be spending almost as much time in them as you do in the rest of the game. And before we continue on, make sure to leave a little like and comment if you're enjoying the video, and subscribe for more content like this. I make videos about Splatoon as well as other games like Freedom Planet, and I even have a video about a particular spider-themed animated movie in the works, so if you'd like to see that, be sure to subscribe. I also have a Patreon and a Discord server, which are linked in the description below. Thanks for your support, everyone. Now that we've snagged a few of the gemstones, we've finally made it to the boss of Attraction Attack, and oh wow, that was easy. Alrighty, I guess we're moving straight on to Raging Ruin, which is definitely one of the most open, speedy zones in the game. The boss here is probably one of my favorites as well, forcing you to pin down one of its hands so the other collides with it. Then comes Frigid Fortress Zone, full of these fun little teleporter gimmicks, as well as bringing back the snowboarding segments from Sonic 3's Ice Cap Zone, and the magnetic orbs from that game's bonus stages. The boss here is definitely one of my least favorites, forcing you to wait long periods of time to even get a hit on it, one of the core don'ts of Sonic boss design. In Viridian Valley, this game's stand-in for Green Hill or Emerald Hill, you'll encounter Metal Sonic once again, as he harnesses the power of these ancient unknown aliens for the first time, and launches a counter-strike against you with lots of bad licks and even some boats? After that, it's on to my favorite stage, Drifting Dynamo, which, in the past, takes form of a desert during sunset, allowing you to ride around on the tornado in certain segments, all while you observe the construction of a massive airship in the background. But travel to the future, and you'll find that the airship has been completed as you fight your way through it. The flying battery inspiration is clear here, and this version of the stage also has my favorite music in the whole game. And finally, we have Tidal Tubes, this game's water stage, which was actually adopted from a different cancelled fan game, Sonic 0 Remastered. This stage is alright, as decent as a water level that isn't Hydro City can be. And now I know I'm gonna regret saying that out loud. I know I'll have people in the comments screaming at me that it's actually Hydrosity. Ugh. Anyways, in terms of the game's normal stages, that's actually it. At the end of Title Tubes, the game forces you to pull a Marty McFly and go back to the future for the game's final two main stages, Sunken Saucer and Planetary Panic. But before we get into that, there is a key flaw to this game that I need to address, and it's once again regarding the special stages. Given that there are only 6 zones, for a total of 12 acts where you're able to access the special stages, and 14 magic rocks in all to collect, that makes it extremely difficult for you to actually get all of them without scouring every inch of every stage. You'd have to complete an average of 1 special stage per act, and in at least 2 of them complete 2. That's a lot to ask of the player just for a super form and a secret boss, and that's only if you're playing as Sonic. Neither Tails or Knuckles can use their super forms in this game, only Sonic. All Tails and Knuckles get for their true ending is a blurb of text essentially saying, "Yup, you did it, you saved the day!" Which is incredibly underwhelming considering how difficult it is to get all 7 Time Stones and all 7 Chaos Emeralds. It definitely feels like the devs wanted to echo how Sonic 3 and Knuckles had 14 Emeralds to collect, both the 7 Chaos Emeralds and the 7 Super Emeralds. But in execution, I think they failed to understand why this worked in that game. There, the game featured 10 zones where you could access the special stages, rather than just 6. And even then, if you only got all the Chaos Emeralds but not the Super Emeralds, you could still get the true ending. The Super Emeralds were just a bonus for if you wanted to upgrade your Super Form to a Hyper Form. Here, with only 6 zones to collect all 14 Emeralds, it forces you to comb every level to the extreme just to find the entrances, let alone actually complete the special stages. That's like asking you to complete all 14 special stages in just the Sonic 3 half of 3 and Knuckles. But aside from that, I did manage to collect all the Emeralds and Time Stones, once with Knuckles and then in a second playthrough with Sonic. After clearing Title Tubes, you enter a Sunken Saucer that leads you to, well, Sunken Saucer Zone. This is a 1-act zone that takes you through the remains of an alien spacecraft, and is easily one of the game's highlights, as well as a great test of skill. Filled with anti-gravity gimmicks as well as electrical hazards everywhere, and this zone is a test to ensure you've mastered the game's mechanics before throwing you into the thrill of its final zone. Metal Sonic also succeeds in reviving Robotnik here, and the stage ends with Little Planet colliding with Mobius, leading perfectly into Planetary Panic. This final stage is a mad dash to stop Robotnik and Metal Sonic from conquering Little Planet once again, and the atmosphere of this stage is unmatched, with cracks opening in the planet's crust beneath you, spewing magma, parts of the stage collapsing as you make your way through, all while this triumphant but threatening music plays. It's a great send-off to the game as a whole. The same can't be said about the game's final boss though, which is quite possibly one of the most poorly designed bosses I've ever seen in a game like this. The aesthetics and design are fine, nothing mind-blowing, but the Galactic parody is funny if nothing else. I guess that considering the Death Egg was a massive parody of Star Wars Death Star, it would make sense for a Marvel parody to fit in here too. But the boss itself is... yikes. See, in order to take down Galactic, yes that's his name, you have to attack his massive nose, all while platforming toward the top of the screen to avoid falling into the abyss. Galactic will try to stop you by shooting laser beams at you, if you happen to be below him, and eventually he'll fly into the background and shoot energy balls to destroy the platforms you're jumping between. Now, in concept, this sounds like a fun fight, but its execution leaves a lot to be desired. It's challenging, yes, but not in a way that feels like the player's fault when they die. See, the platforms falling from the top of the screen spawn in a seemingly random pattern, and occasionally they'll fall directly over Galactic's weak point. And they're so close together that you either lose the chance to attack him altogether, or you risk landing on the platform above you, coming out of your jump and taking damage by running into his nose. And that's only if his laser eyes don't get you first. And all of that would be difficult enough, but it's made even more frustrating by the fact that this fight once again commits the cardinal sin of Sonic boss fights. Long stretches of waiting before you have a chance to attack the boss. When Galactic dives into the background to fire at your platforms, he's completely invulnerable, and this attack takes an average of 20 seconds from start to finish. That means you only have a chance to attack him maybe every 20 seconds, which in turn makes having to repeat this fight if you lose even more grueling, since it takes so long to even be able to attack him. Gripes aside, once you've taken this form down, you'll head into the true final boss, Galactic Gauntlet, which is your typical supersonic boss fight. Fly through space avoiding obstacles and collecting rings to maintain your super form until you get close enough to attack Galactic, rinse and repeat until he's defeated. It's a fine enough fight, nothing really all that special, and once you beat him... Oh my god. I'm, just gotta ignore that. So Sonic Time Twisted. It's really fun, and I can definitely see why I liked it so much when I was younger. The level design is great, the soundtrack is excellent, and you should definitely give it a listen, and the implementation of Sonic CD's time travel alongside the mechanics introduced in 3 and Knuckles makes for a really solid game. Plus, it adds its own spin on things to feel unique and stand out. However, despite this, there's a ton of little things that stand out and chip away at the game's quality ever so slightly, at least for me. The extreme difficulty of getting the true ending, the omission of Tails and Knuckles' super forms, the hit-or-miss boss design, the lack of Act 1 mini-bosses for the most part, no Tails to follow Sonic around, the insta-shield being a little buggy. All of this adds up to an experience that, while fun, ends up leaving a little bit to be desired. But at least Knuckles has his cowboy hat from the OVA, so that makes the game automatically a 10 out of 10.